We got a Thursday night game between the Eagles and the Commanders. We're going to break down this matchup and identify the must-start, sneaky starts, the guys to bench from this matchup. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're using these videos to help you set your lineups by looking at the matchups. We're doing deep dives on the trending players, and we're going deep on the waiver wire almost every single day. Click that button. Stop missing out. Ric Flair's watching. You do not want to disappoint Ric Flair. But looking at the matchup here, we got 48.5 over-under. Vegas is saying they're expecting this to be a high-scoring game because they want to be dead nuts even on this so the money can go all different directions. So they're saying, hey, we should see fantasy points scored in this game. We're not trying to predict the over-under here. We're trying to predict the games where there's more likely to be points scored to fuel fantasy production. In their last 3 contests, the game has hit the over. However, we got a 48.5 over-under. That might be baked into that number. On top of that, when you look at both offenses, you look at how they score, you can definitely see that happening. How can it be a low-scoring game? If the defenses ball out, if there are turnovers, if we run some clock here, if both rushing attacks start cooking, we could definitely see that. However, when we look at both these offenses, we can definitely see multiple players cooking tonight. And we're looking at both these quarterbacks, and more than likely, if you have them on your fantasy team, you're looking to start them. Jalen Hurts has been good, getting you rushing production. Jayden Daniels, coming off a low game, however, has been good all season, getting you rushing production. Both these teams are going to be throwing the football in this game. It just looks like that on paper, and on top of that, you're going to get that rushing floor from both quarterbacks. Unless you're jacked at quarterback, more than likely, you're rolling with one of these guys this week. We got 4 teams on bye, and I'm probably going to say that multiple times when looking at some of the ancillary players in this game. But you are more than likely rolling with one of these quarterbacks. They're both top options for the week. Looking at the running game for the Washington Commanders, Brian Robinson is in. He will be playing tonight. He's back from the hamstring. We know about players coming back from injury. That's on you and how you feel about that. We do not know he's going to be scaled back. Usually, players who are back into the fold usually come back and get a good workload. Maybe not all of it, but they usually come back and get a good workload. So expect him to get some touches tonight. Is it going to be reduced? We don't know. We don't know. And I'm going to say that because that's the right analysis to say. Because if I say either or, it's not really true, even though it could be correct. Austin Ekeler, when Brian Robinson is healthy, is a good RB3, getting you double-digit PPR fantasy points in most games. When Brian Robinson is healthy, he's a solid, steady RB2. Looking at the matchup against Philly, they're okay against running backs. They're bend but don't break, especially against good rushing attacks during the start of the season. Josh Jacobs got you 12. Bijan Robinson got you 16. Alvin Kamara got you 15. Bucky Irving got you 12.5. You're looking here recently. They've played against some suspect offenses, some up and down teams, so the rushing production hasn't been grand. Might see something different today. We will see a split up workload. However, when you got these running backs, you're going to have to make some lineup decisions with them. Brian Robinson is a toss-up right now. More than likely, when an injured player comes back, they're getting workload and opportunity, but you're going to have to go off your gut. Watch the pregame, those little clips before the game, just to get some added feeling to you before you make that decision. This is early in the morning. I'm waiting for more news myself. However, I'm probably going to roll with it. Looking at Terry McLaurin, and you're starting him. I do not see a decision in this world where you're benching him. However, if you're in a very small league, you got a lot of competition at wide receiver, you're just extremely blessed. Maybe in that scenario, but he's been steady since week 3. Double-digit PPR fantasy performances, just steady. Good wide receiver 2 in fantasy football, but his average is making him like a wide receiver 1-ish when it comes to production, getting targets, getting air yards. Very dependable. Noah Brown has been hot for targets in these last 5 games. 4 of the last 5 games, you've seen 6 or more targets. You're seeing 8, you're seeing 7, you're seeing 6, you're seeing 7. We should see volume go his way. However, it's not equating to fantasy production, but in a matchup like this, you're playing DraftKings, you're setting a 16-team lineup, you're hurting a wide receiver, and you want to gamble on your flex, this could be it. But those wide receivers, move them up the wide receiver, not the flex, so you have some flexibility in the flex spot. Looking at Philly, though, and what they're doing against wide receiver, they're bend but not break. There are some games where they did cave week 1 against the Packers to Jayden Reed. Chris Olave got 20. Mike Evans got 23. Chase got 20.4. Outside of that, the stud wide receivers are hitting. The ancillary wide receivers are ho-hum. And on top of that, they played some matchups where the offenses were kind of in flux here lately. So really looking at the start of the season, good wide receivers can score against them. Terry McLaurin should be okay. Should push to around 15 fantasy points if everything's going correctly. We know he's going to get targets. We know he's going to get shots downfield. If we bring in one of those, we know he's going to go off. Noah Brown's going to get targets. You're looking at Zach Ertz. Tight ends are up and down. They don't get deep balls. They get short ADOTs. They got to score touchdowns, and they got to break loose on a catch or two. You're looking at what Philly's doing to tight ends, and they're shutting them down routinely. They had 2 games where they broke. Mike Gesicki scored 14.3 PPR fantasy points. K. Dotton got 11.2 on them. Outside of that, it's been ugly for tight ends. They're averaging 12.3 PPR fantasy points a game in their last 3 games of tight ends. Mainly Mike Gesicki there. Zach Ertz is going to have to score a touchdown. He's going to get the volume to increase those odds. He's also going to have to break loose on a few plays. The volume's going to be there to allow him to get fantasy production. Expect him on the low end to get you around 7 fantasy points. And then the top end is whether or not he gets that touchdown. Now we're looking at Saquon Barkley for the Eagles. I do not see a world where you're benching Saquon Barkley. Of course, everything's good as gold here with him. Against the Commanders, you're looking at a good matchup for him. They're allowing good fantasy points to stud running backs. Look at Derrick Henry with a 25.2 PPR fantasy performance in Week 6. Zach Moss hung 20 on them. Not a stud running back, but did that. Swift got 18.9. Outside of that, in the other matchups, they're bend but not break. They'll allow fantasy production, but now allow the other running backs to go off. However, compared to some of those other running backs, he's in another tier. So we should see him push for a 20 spot or more to go off in this game. The work rate in the passing game, what he's doing in the run game, 5.8 yards per carry. We should expect Saquon Barkley to have a good game. They're not allowing many low games. And when that's happening, against the Browns, is that Deshaun Watson back there? Tracy had a low game, but Daniel Jones not getting it done in that matchup. It's got to be an awful matchup for him not to do that. Jalen Hurts has to suck. The offense has to suck. I just don't see that happening. I feel like he's very safe. We're looking at the wide receivers here. Devonta Smith will be good to go. Looks like he'll be on the field. He's been up and down this season, mainly a wide receiver too. Expect him to get targets. Since he's come back from injury, you may want to halt there. I'm not recommending that, but I'll throw that out there. However, whenever a good wide receiver is coming back, typically you're going to throw him in their lineup. Just expect a little bit of a reduction, but not much. You might have some start-sit dilemmas with him, but with the 49 over-under, the matchups, 4 bye weeks this week, you might just have to throw him out there and eat whatever shit comes your way, whether it's white dog shit or the nice brown stuff. A.J. Brown, however, you know he's getting the work, you know he's getting the targets, and you know you're going to get those opportunities. I don't see a world where you're benching him. He's not coming in banged up. They're allowing fantasy points to wide receivers. You're going to see some opportunities here in this offense. They're bend but not break, but they will break in some instances to elite wide receivers. A.J. Brown's elite, like the Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors. And yes, they got Malik Neighbors in that territory. A.J. Brown should eat in this matchup. If we played this game, simulated 100 times, I believe Devonta Smith would have up and down production where some games he goes off, some games he gives you a little bit nothing, and probably not many games where he's in between. That's kind of how I play this with him. However, in most lineup decisions, I'm probably going to roll with it because of the 49 over-under. Now we're looking at Dallas Goedert. Kind of the same thing with Zach Ertz. We got to get in the end zone here. We got to get some targets where we break free. However, it's more than likely to happen against the Commanders here. We're allowing double digits to tight ends on a good clip here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games this season. And it's not all against stud tight ends. Some jabroni tight ends are mixed in there. He's getting a good target share. He's getting a good work rate. Grant Calcaterra was shut out of targets when Goedert was back last week. Goedert's going to get workload. He's going to get volume. He's a tight end, so tight ends are always going to be a gamble. But a 19% target share when he's on the field, that's a good clip. So you're just hoping he gets in the end zone like every other tight end. He's getting a 6.7 average depth of target, which sucks. The volume's probably going to be about, what, 5 targets, 6 targets in this matchup. So you're hoping he gets in the end zone, breaks free. That's a dice roll, but you're at least going to get some volume to look at from Dallas Goedert, especially with an over-under at 49. Both offenses pushing the pace. This should be a good look for you in fantasy. Those are the must-starts for the Thursday night game. Drop who you're starting from this game in the comment section below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.